Well, hey there, everybody. It's Mrs. Acero, and I am here to teach your class about conflict. Conflict is the problem of a story, and it can't be a story without at least one conflict. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce myself to you. My name is Mrs. Acero, and I was a teacher for 34 years. Teaching language arts was my passion. What I'm going to be doing with you today is a mini lesson, so it's concise and you'll know everything that is expected of you by the end of the lesson. This lesson, along with the guided notes, are available in my TPT store. If you're interested, the link will be in the video description. If you are using the guided notes, you're going to want to fill them in when you see this icon. If your teacher lets you work with your partner, you will turn and talk in certain portions. I hope you find this lesson helpful, and let's dive in. So it's always good to have a mentor to refer to when you're learning new skills. It doesn't have to be in writing, however. Using films is a great way to learn. For this lesson, we are going to be examining the Oscar-winning film Piper. It is a short film. Your teacher may prefer for you to use a different text, and if that's the case, just substitute whatever your teacher wants you to use when you are doing the turn and talk portion. So right now, if you're using my video, you're going to pause. You're going to go to the video link that is in the video description of this lesson, and you're going to watch Piper. It's about 3 minutes long. It's about a hungry baby sandpiper leaving her nest for the first time. As you watch, pay attention to the problems that Piper faces. Why do we need to know about conflict? Well, there is no doubt that you have been listening and reading stories, poems, and songs. Hopefully, this is something that you have enjoyed. Learning to dig a little deeper into the text by examining the conflicts and how the character deals with them is crucial. We can learn about the characters and the plot when we understand conflict better. There are many types of conflict, and stories often have more than one. So we need to get on board with conflict. Today's goal is to understand that conflict is the problem or problems that a character deals with in a story, and that there are different types of conflict. Today, we will get into 5 different types of conflict, and we will talk about how a character responds to conflict. How a character responds gives us a key to understanding that character and the plot itself better. So conflict leads to a deeper understanding of the story. There are 2 main categories of conflict, and I'm going to just pause here because the guided notes icon is up. So if you're using them, you want to take your notes now. When looking at conflicts that affect characters, there are 2 main types. One is an internal type of conflict. This conflict takes place within the character. There is one type of internal conflict, and that is person versus self. The other type is an external conflict. This type of conflict is one that takes place outside of the character themselves. There are 4 types of external conflict we will talk about today. Person versus person, person versus nature, person versus society, and person versus fate. We will get into the definitions more specifically later on in the slideshow. Okay, let's talk about what it means to be reactive versus proactive. When you're looking at different types of conflict, it is important to note how characters deal with these problems. There are 2 main responses: reactive which is when a character dwells on the problem. They may respond in a negative way, makes the problem worse. The other way a character could respond would be considered proactive. This is when a character creates a plan of action. They rise above and work through the issue in a positive way. Note that characters often change how they respond by the end of a story. Many characters start out reactive, end up proactive, not all the time. And these are really good life lessons for all of us when characters learn to respond more proactively. So now you're going to try it. You're going to think about the short film paper or whatever mentor text your teacher has you using. You're going to turn and talk with your partner about the problems in this story. If you have guided notes, you're going to fill them in together, and you're going to focus on these questions. What is the main problem or conflict in the film paper? Is paper reactive or proactive, and how do you know? Pause the video and turn and talk, and if you have guided notes, you'll fill them in now. Okay, let's get into the different types of conflict. Let's talk first about person versus self. This is when a character struggles with some opposing desire or emotion within himself or herself. And when we say opposing, it means that they're really opposite and it's creating a struggle, it's creating a conflict. It is an internal conflict. Here's a general example. Character lacks self-confidence to try out for the school play. Famous literary example is in the book Wonder. Augie struggles with feeling self-conscious. I'm hoping many of you have read Wonder, and if you haven't, put that on your to-be-read list. Okay, and now you're going to try it. You're going to turn and talk to your partner using the prompts up here. If you have the guided notes, fill them in together. You're going to describe the person versus self conflict. Note, person refers to the main character. In this case, it's Piper, who is good. Was Piper proactive or reactive? How do you know? What is a famous person versus self conflict in literature, television, or a movie? Pause my video and turn and talk. Let's move on to person versus person. This is when a character struggles with another character. It is an external conflict. A general example, two characters are in a fight about something that happened in school. A famous literary example is Harry Potter versus Lord Voldemort. Person versus nature. This is when a character struggles with a force of nature that is out of their control. It is an external conflict. A general example, a drought causes economic hardships. In case you don't know what a drought is, it's when it's very dry because there hasn't been any rain. A famous literary example, Dorothy versus the tornado in The Wizard of Oz. So let's try it. Turn and talk to your partner using the prompts below. If you have the guided notes, fill them in together. You're going to go over these prompts. Are there person versus person or person versus nature conflicts in paper? In this case, bird versus bird and bird versus nature. Describe. What are famous person versus person and person versus nature conflicts in literature, television, or a movie? Pause my video and turn and talk. The next type of conflict is person versus society. This is when a character struggles with values and customs by which everyone else's lives are being challenged. It is an external conflict. A general example, a character is displaced due to a war. A famous literary example, characters in To Kill a Mockingbird battle with extreme racism. Person versus fate. You might hear this also called person versus destiny. This is when a character struggles with something that is completely out of their control. It is an external conflict. A general example, a character's family member is battling an illness. A famous literary example, in the book Wonder, Augie suffers from a rare condition, leaves him disfigured. Okay, let's try it. Learn and talk to your partner using the prompts below. If you have guided notes, fill them in together. Are there person versus society or person versus fate conflicts in Piper? In this case, bird versus society or bird versus fate. What are famous person versus society and person versus fate conflicts in literature, television, or movie? And that's a wrap. Be sure to tune back in for more Teach My Class episodes. You can also check out First Chapter Friday on my YouTube channel, where I'll read the first chapters of my favorite middle school novels. Hope to see you soon.